Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. In our 710 WOR monthly book feature brought to you by Your Home TV and Kathy Ireland Worldwide, today we're diving into one of the most important topics and pressing issues of our time. Loneliness, affecting people across all ages and backgrounds. Loneliness has become an all too common and seemingly ever rising challenge in today's world, with many feeling isolated and struggling to find valuable human connections. The iconic therapist Dr. Ruth Westheimer's final book, The Joy of Connections, 100 Ways to Beat Loneliness and Live a Happier and More Meaningful Life, offers an urgent guide to combat loneliness with 100 ways to increase connectivity right now, based on insights from her life story and her unparalleled career. Today, we're joined by Dr. Ruth's two co-authors, Allison Gilbert and Pierre Lehu. Allison is an Emmy Award-winning journalist and one of the most influential writers and speakers on how to find the inner resources to overcome life's biggest challenges. Allison is also founder of Pub Day, a boutique literary consultancy that helps emerging and established writers find community and realize their book publishing goals. Pierre has authored and co-authored 30 published books, 22 of which with Dr. Ruth. Originally working in public relations, he collaborated with Dr. Ruth for over 4 decades, spanning back to 1981, when she just had a 15-minute taped radio show. Wow, how we have come full circle. They joined me today to discuss how their book addresses the loneliness epidemic and the key to cultivating deeper, more fulfilling connections with others. Welcome to the show, superstars.
Hello.
Oh, it's so great to be here.
Yeah, this should be wonderful. And hopefully we'll make people less lonely.
Yeah, that's the goal. Allison, Pierre, thank you so much for joining. Allison, let's start with you. So this book focuses on battling the importance of human connections and overcoming loneliness, with Surgeon General Vivek Murthy sounding the alarm that loneliness represents an urgent public health concern in 2023, warning that 1 in 2 adults in America are living with measurable levels of loneliness, with the numbers even higher among young people. Why do you believe the messages in this book are more relevant and important than ever today? And what do you hope readers take away from it?
It is really hard to admit that you don't have the kind of friends that you most want. It's a lot of shame can bubble up when you try to establish a romantic connection. And for some reason, over and over and over again, those relationships don't withstand date 2, date 3. It just crumbles. And so if you are left feeling like you are not engaging with the people that are making you feel whole and seen, you probably don't want to raise your hand to say, you know what? I'm lonely, but that's exactly what we have to do. We have to look in the mirror and decide, what is it about how we are presenting ourselves that may be to blame, that may be worth looking at more closely, so we can really determine how we can move forward with the kinds of relationships that make us feel seen, heard, and valued.
That's great perspective. Very, very well said. Now, Pierre, I know that while Dr. Ruth has been long beloved for her candid demeanor and breaking stigmas around sex and sexuality, she pivoted her focus in her final years to look deeper into loneliness. And this book is deeply anchored by her own experiences and story. Now, as someone who knew and worked closely with the great Dr. Ruth for over 4 decades, can you tell us more about how this book pulls from the loneliness she faced in her own life?
Well, it started when she was only 10 years old, and her mother and grandmother put her on a train from Nazi Germany to Switzerland to escape the Holocaust. And so she lived for 6 years, she lived in an orphanage. She went to then Palestine and was badly wounded in a bomb explosion, and thought to herself, am I going to die? And how much lonelier can you feel than that? She was married 3 times, divorced twice. Her last husband passed away, again after 35 years of marriage. And again, she faced loneliness. And so she recognized loneliness and knew it had to be dealt with. And in the years that I knew her, after her husband Fred passed away, she was out every single night. If she didn't have a dinner date or some friends to hang out with or whatever, a business meeting, she would take herself to Lincoln Center, go to the box office and say, "What do you have going on tonight?" And she would do something. She wouldn't stay home alone. She always gave herself the opportunities to meet other people.
I love her approach to life. It's unique to see the footprint she's left and the legacy she continues to leave. Now, Allison, let's talk about some of the valuable lessons and strategies suggested in this very book. So, before diving into anything specific, readers are first presented with Dr. Ruth's menu for connection, which represents the parts of our life that require the most care and attention for building and nurturing these meaningful relationships. And upon developing 100 ideas and strategies to overcome loneliness and form meaningful connections, 88 of them are divided into the 5 categories on her menu: self, family, friends, and lovers, and community and technology. The largest and most important portion being self. Can you explain why first evaluating yourself, your behavior, and your outlook is so important before taking steps towards the actual positive change in how you interact with others?
Well, here's an example. If you go around every single day posting online and in your conversations, we are a selfie culture. But if you in person keep talking only about yourself and your accomplishments and maybe even what's wrong in your life right now, but you don't even take a breath to say, what's going on with you? I remember you had this problem. Whatever happened to that? If you don't ask questions and wait for the answers, it is a really lopsided relationship. There's nothing for that other person to latch on to. And so you might be depriving yourself of these connections that we're talking about based on your lack of interest in other people. And that's really hard to admit. There is some tough love in this conversation about social connection. Another piece of this, by the way, is, are you prioritizing your connections, or are you scrolling for hours and not leaving your couch? The truth of the matter is, no one is going to come knock on your door. The red carpet is not going to unfurl to your doorstep. You have to have the inclination to get up, walk out that door, and engage. And it's up to you to do that proactive work.
Now, let's shift our focus to a major contributor to the loneliness epidemic: social media. Okay, so while social media has, in theory, made us more connected than ever, it brings along its own set of problems, leading to increased levels of loneliness in its users. So, why do you think social media has such a paradoxical effect, connecting people yet also fostering isolation? And how can we really combat this? Pierre, I'd love your perspective on this.
I'm going to start with a personal story. I lost my wife of 45 years a couple of years ago, and I have a new lady friend, and she's from New Orleans, and so she has this very cute Southern accent. So when we're together, I get to enjoy that. When we're texting, that disappears. I mean, over the 100,000 years of humanity, we've learned to look at body language, look at our eyes. There are so many signs that we give each other that are not just in a text. It's not just something you can type out. And so if you're only reacting to people on this one-dimensional way, you're not fully connecting with them. And if you're not fully connecting with them, then then you stay lonely. Then you feel that you end the conversation, even though it's typed, and you don't feel better about anything, and it doesn't feel natural. As human beings, we are meant to talk face to face and communicate with our hands and our eyes and our lips and every other part, just the way you stand. Are you slouching? Are you looking stern? All that's so important. Social media wipes that off.
Couldn't agree more. Social media totally wipes that off, and it's smoking mirrors in many ways, like we were speaking behind the stage before we got on, that a lot of the time it's not everything that glitters is gold, and people tend to judge a book by its cover, unfortunately, and that's what smoking mirrors is and social media is all about. Now, while co-authoring this book with Dr. Ruth, were there any standout moments during the development and writing process? And what was the most profound lesson on loneliness and connectivity you took away from the experience? Allison, you can go first.
I love this question because I felt by working with Dr. Ruth, I was in a master class of how to fully engage in my relationships. And I remember I had a birthday during this time, and Dr. Ruth reminded me that a birthday could be all about me and just waiting on the receiving end of my friends to show up and, fet me with drinks and dinner and for me to be the center of attention. But there was this other way of approaching a birthday, and I will never forget this, is to use my birthday as a way of thanking my friends for being in my life. And I spent an entire birthday, I created an entire day where the focus was on them and my gratitude for what they bring to my life. And it's an important lesson to make sure that you are communicating what those people who are in your life mean to you. And when you do that, you have the opportunity to strengthen your connection. And that's a lesson that I will never forget.
So true. Pierre, how about you?
Well, this was the 26th book that I've written with Dr. Ruth. This is the first book there was an actual co-author that I was working with on an almost daily basis, i.e. Allison. So writing is a lonely job most of the time. And here it wasn't as lonely. Yes, when you're actually at the computer, you're lonely a little bit, but you're into it. But you had somebody to go back and forth with to discuss things. And so this whole experience was a way to lessen my loneliness. And again, as I said, I'd lost my wife, so having someone to interact with.
That's to me, to be able to look back in retrospect and tell yourself, sitting in Pierre and Allison's shoes, that you got to at first hand experience, learn, connect, and interact with the great Dr. Ruth. That in of itself is so impressive, because she still is a brilliant mind.
Yes.
But Pierre, what you just said was so powerful. Everything that the book was about played out for you by virtue of meeting Allison, and everything she preached, you put into motion by now having this co-author, turning writing into more of a duo process than a solitary one.
Yeah, let me add, you said that Dr. Ruth was still around. The lady I met, as it turned out, when we met, we were talking, and she had a Dr. Ruth connection. She owned a store, and Dr. Ruth would go there all the time to buy dollhouse furniture. So the two of us believed that it was Dr. Ruth working from above that put us together.
Oh, for sure. Oh, 100%. I mean, that's without a doubt. That's without a doubt. Well, we are at the end of this incredible interview. I could go on and on, but this was just a feature, and I could definitely have you back on to talk more and to really just kind of, figure out where the narrative needs to be for this generation, to peel them back off of the me, and really just dive into the service of others, right? And not just about focusing on just what do I get out of this equation, which I think is part of the problem in today's society.
Yep.
I agree 100%. It's purpose, it's finding meaning beyond yourself. And so the idea that you want to revisit this, that is exactly what Dr. Ruth would want you to do. And so thank you for doing that. It's so important. And your voice in this conversation is transformative. So we're so grateful.
Well, that was the 710 WOR book feature of the month, and that was the incredible Allison Gilbert, Emmy Award-winning journalist, author, and speaker, and longtime collaborator of Dr. Ruth. And author Pierre Lehu. You definitely have to pick up a copy of their book and Dr. Ruth's final book, The Joy of Connections, 100 Ways to Beat Loneliness and Live a Happier, More Meaningful Life. To learn more about Allison, you could head directly to AllisonGilbert.com, or you could check her out on the gram at @GilbertWriter, and you can also check out Pierre on the gram at Lehu Pierre. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Your Home TV.
Hi, this is Kathy Ireland here on A Moment of Zen, brought to you by Your Home TV. We've developed an all-inclusive subscription-free network that you're going to love, whether it's financial freedom, fashion, beauty, health and wellness, wonderful weddings, travel and culture, cooking, entertainment, and short-form documentaries, programming for everyone. Classic films and new shows, including Kathy Ireland Presents American Dreams. We've developed this network just for you. Please check out yourhometv.com.
Tune in to A Moment of Zen, Saturday nights from 9 to 10 p.m. on WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio.